Welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Concha, filling in for Steve Malzberg today. Well, first, before anything, just read a great book. When you're in this business, fortunately, you get advanced copies on stuff. And in this case, I got Power Grab. Yes, there it is. And that is by Newsmax contributor and political analyst Dick Morris. Power Grab is about Obama's dangerous plan for a one-party nation. And Dick, as you know, is a very articulate gentleman. He's written many books before, and this one will not disappoint. Dick will be on this very show tomorrow to talk more about the book. Be sure to pick up your copy at bookstores nationwide or go to powergrab411.com. Okay, moving on. So marijuana is now legal in 23 states plus Washington, D.C. The road to legalization has not been an easy one, and the debate is still very heated, with many against legalization of marijuana arguing its harmful effects on developing brains of teens and young adults. So here to take the pro-marijuana position is the co-founder and director of Project CBD and author of Smoke Signals, A Social History of Marijuana. It's Martin A. Lee. Martin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I have to toss to a clip because working in television, I know many people who've always wanted to do this. But let's, everybody in the control room, toss to the clip of that Alaska anchor who decided just to leave her job in the most spectacular fashion. Roll it.
Now, everything you heard is why I, the actual owner of the Alaska Cannabis Club, will be dedicating all of my energy toward fighting for freedom and fairness, which begins with legalizing marijuana here in Alaska. And as for this job, well, not that I have a choice, but it, I quit.
All right, we apologize for that. We'll be right back. Pardon for us.
I would argue that the reaction is infinitely better than the actual walkout. That you don't expect that sort of thing to happen in these situations, Martin. Did you see that clip before now?
Yes, I did. It's certainly gone viral. It's gotten a lot of attention, and it underscores that people are very passionate about cannabis, as one way of referring to marijuana. But when you introduce me as pro-marijuana, I prefer to be introduced as pro-science, pro-reality, because I think the argument for legalizing marijuana is very much rooted in science, and it's very compelling, actually.
Now, in terms of scientific benefits, can you just name three for me that you see as, in the medical aspect? My wife's a doctor, and I know all about medical marijuana, and obviously if you have cancer and you need to alleviate pain, and unfortunately my mother went through that, I see the benefits there. But just outside, are you talking in terms of medical marijuana, or are we just talking about general benefits to just your average guy?
You know, sometimes it's hard to draw a line between the two. You know, there's been just a study from the Journal of American Medical Association published that showed in states where medical marijuana is legal, 25% less deaths from opiate overdose. People are using opium not medically. If there's less danger there as a result of the recreational availability of marijuana, I would say that would be a good thing. There are many other surveys, scientific surveys, that show that when you compare groups of people who smoke marijuana to those that don't, and the group that smokes it, less Alzheimer's, less metabolic syndrome, obesity, less use of pharmaceutical painkillers. So just, and I'm not talking about people taking it specifically with a medical intent, just people taking it. And that's what the scientists now are finding in terms of the surveys. There's actually much more to it. You mentioned use for nausea. With respect to chemotherapy, it's very, very difficult to go through that. And anything that can alleviate the pain of chemotherapy would be an asset. But it really goes beyond that. What the scientists are showing now with animal studies, not with human studies yet, is that there actually are certain compounds in marijuana that can shrink tumors. THC, the high causer, can do that. There's also another very interesting compound called cannabidiol, CBD, which interestingly does not get people high. It does make people feel stoned. It's non-psychoactive. And there's a great deal of excitement within the medical marijuana community and the scientific community.
Yeah, that's where I get mixed. I see the benefits, the medical benefits. I hear about them from my wife, from her doctor friends that seem to be, at least in the medical community, there's some advocacy for this because they see the patients going through the types of uncomfort that they go through on a daily basis. Where then I get conflicted is that I see kids all the time when I'm driving, texting while they're driving. And obviously we see that DWI is the highest cause of teen deaths, right behind texting. So then if you introduce another drug into society, then you're just asking for more people to act irresponsibly, as they have with alcohol, as they do with texting. And then if you add a third component to the road where you have a kid that's drunk, high, and texting, I don't want to be anywhere near that highway. So that's where I get worried, that you're just, people haven't shown that they can be responsible with alcohol. Why should I think they're going to be responsible with pot?
Well, I think you raise a very good point, and it's a matter of education. The problem is, when marijuana was made illegally on a federal level in 1937, we lost this connection to this plant, this very important plant. You know, it's had medical uses going back thousands of years in many cultures, including in the United States. It was predominantly used in the 19th century, the second half, as a medicine. So really, we need to re-educate ourselves, not just about the dangers and what not to do, but how to use it well. Even people within the medical marijuana community could use that education. But I think it's a matter of behavior and judging one's behavior. Certain things you don't do. You don't drive a car inebriated, no matter what the cause of the inebriation is, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, or a pharmaceutical. That's just something one shouldn't do. That's common sense. But that's not something that, that's not a reason to restrict access or make illegal a plant that basically is much less harmful than alcohol or many even foods we commonly eat.
I just worry that it could be a gateway drug. I always hear the argument now. I think any time that we try to escape reality, that might not be necessarily a good thing. And a lot of people I know that use it consistently, and by consistently I mean almost on a daily basis. It's part of their diet pretty much. I don't see them as quite as motivated as other folks, because you get so darn relaxed. You just want to eat, hang out, and watch Captain Kangaroo. I know that's kind of like a generalization, but that's basically what I see with my friends that are in their 30s and are working, but they're just not quite as motivated as anybody else. And I wonder if that is good for society to have something like that legal to make people more lazy. And we only have about 30 seconds.
The question is, what is causing the lack of motivation? It's the marijuana use, or is the lack of motivation that's causing the marijuana use? You have to be careful about this, and you have to look at it carefully. But I think that's a stereotype, really. There's many people who are very, very active, very engaged, and very energetic who use marijuana every day, including some forms of marijuana that don't make them feel high.
Do you use on a daily or at least a regular basis?
No, but I am a medical marijuana patient. I had a serious illness, and I do use it when it's appropriate for me to use it.
I hear you. Well, hey, Martin, thanks for coming in. I certainly appreciate it. You're easily our best dressed guy of the day. I love that shirt. It's a nice red. You think I'm being sarcastic. I'm serious. I do like that, and I want to know where you got it. But this was certainly a good conversation, and one that I'm feeling we're going to be hearing a lot more about on the national level. So Joe Concha filling in for Steve Malzberg, the Steve Malzberg Show. Great show, great panels coming up. Thanks for joining. But first, we're going to get back to, we'll be back with the best of Give Me Five. That's right after the break. But first, 57 years ago today, President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent troops into Little Rock, Arkansas to admit 9 previously denied black students to an all-white Central High School. Let's take a look back at that historical day with this American moment.
The 1954 U.S. Supreme Court's decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, declared all laws establishing segregated schools to be unconstitutional. As with the majority of southern cities, Little Rock, Arkansas's Board of Education agreed to comply with the court's ruling. However, Arkansas's Governor Orville Faubus had other ideas.
Units of the National Guard have been and are now being mobilized with the mission to maintain or restore the peace and good order of this community.
President Eisenhower was so disturbed by the governor's decision to completely ignore federal law, he cut short his vacation and returned to the White House to address the nation.
The president's responsibility is inescapable. In accordance with that responsibility, I have today issued an executive order directing the use of troops under federal authority to aid in the execution of federal law at Little Rock, Arkansas.
At the center of the controversy were 9 black students selected by the Little Rock School Board to attend the then all-white Central High School. One of the students, Elizabeth Eckford, arrived at the school separately and found herself confronting an angry crowd of students and bystanders. Suddenly, out of that crowd, as seen here, an older white woman came to her rescue and guided her safely to a bus. Even after the 9 students were admitted to Central High, The year that followed found them being subjected to taunts and abuses, both verbal and physical, by student and parent alike.
Well, I think like if a Spanish or a Chinese person came here, it wouldn't be hard to get along with them. It's just that the Negroes are what you might say more different to us than a Spanish person might be.
However, with the admittance of those brave students on the 25th day of September, 1957, the precedent had been set. And soon afterward, all of Little Rock schools voluntarily complied with the court's rulings, and planned school segregation became part of a troubled past. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.